All right, so you're thinking about hiring a Vine developer. Sounds a little bit like a blast from the past, right? Like something straight out of 2013. But seriously, in the world of short form video, this is a skill that is absolutely on fire right now. And I bet if you're listening to this, you're probably wondering, like, where do I even start?
Well, lucky for you, we're about to break it all down. First things first, I highly recommend heading over to theperfectdeveloper.com and trying out their 5 questions feature. It's a really, really cool way to get laser focus on what you actually need before you even start talking to anyone.
You know, it's funny because the Vine app might be gone, but the skills that those developers had are more valuable than ever. I mean, think about it. We are living in a world run by TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. Short form video is everywhere.
Okay, so let's get one thing straight. We're not talking about some, developer stuck in a time warp back in like the 6-second loop days. We're talking about the people who are making the short videos that we all are obsessed with today. But what do they actually do? Well, they kind of wear a lot of hats. They're masters of everything from the technical side to making sure the user has a good experience. I mean, close your eyes and imagine. Try to picture an app that has to deal with millions of videos being uploaded, people watching them, liking them, commenting, and all that happening at the same time without any glitches. That's where these specialists really shine.
Okay, so it sounds like they're working with some pretty serious tech. Couldn't just any app developer handle that?
Yeah.
What makes a Vine developer different?
It's all about their understanding of video and how that interacts with the rest of the app. They know how to get the best quality video without making the files huge, how to keep things playing smoothly even when the internet connection isn't great, and how to integrate all the social media stuff, the likes, comments, sharing, so it's super easy for the user.
So they're like the wizards behind those videos that
Yeah.
start playing before you even realize what's happening.
You got it. They're not just coding, they're building a whole experience around these short videos, which is super important in a world where everyone's competing for attention.
It's total sense. Okay, let's talk money. I know everyone's thinking how much it's going to cost me. What's the salary range for these video experts?
Well, like with most things, it really depends on experience and where they're located. But just to give you an idea, a full-time Vine developer in North America could be making anywhere from $80,000 to $120,000 a year. If you're looking in Europe, it's more like $50,000 to $90,000. And going overseas, let's say to Asia, could bring the cost down to something like $30,000 to $60,000.
Wow, that's a pretty big range. What if you're just kind of testing the waters and thinking about maybe hiring a freelancer?
To be honest with you, freelance rates are kind of all over the place. You might find someone for 30 bucks an hour, but you could also end up paying closer to 80 an hour for someone who's really top notch. Really just depends on the project and how experienced they are.
So budget is definitely something to keep in mind. But you know what they say, you get what you pay for.
100%. Finding the right person for the job is key. And actually, speaking of finding people, there are a few different ways to go about looking for these developers.
Yeah, I'm guessing typing Vine developer into a job site isn't going to magically make the perfect person appear.
You might get a few strange looks, that's for sure. But no, seriously, there are some good places to start. Freelancing platforms like Upwork, Fiverr, TopTal. All of them have tons of developers with these
What
skills.
about LinkedIn? Isn't that like the place to be for finding people in the professional world?
LinkedIn's a must, especially for anything tech related. You can really narrow down your search to people with specific skills. You can see recommendations from their past clients. You can even message people directly.
Okay, so we've got freelancing sites, we've got LinkedIn. What about those, more traditional job boards? Are those still a good option?
They can definitely work, especially if you're hoping to find someone local. Just make sure you're really clear in the job description about the skills you need. Don't be vague, get straight to the point.
All right, so all of this is super helpful. But what if I need more than just one developer? What if I need a whole team of these video specialists? Is that what you can think about, maybe going with a development agency?
Development agencies can be a huge help, especially if you need a bunch of people with different expertise and you don't want to deal with hiring and managing them all yourself. They usually have a whole team of really talented people who have already been vetted, and they can handle everything from managing the project to making sure the quality is top notch.
So many options. Okay, let's say you've done your homework and you found a few people who seem promising. What are some really important questions to ask when you're interviewing them? How do you figure out who's the real deal?
Don't be afraid to get a little technical. Really dive into their experience with the specific tools and frameworks that are used in Vine development. Like you could ask them, what tools and frameworks do you use for video processing and optimization?
Right, because Anyone can say they're a video expert. You want to see some proof. So
Yeah.
always ask for examples of their past work. I want to actually see what they can do, not just hear them talk about it.
A portfolio is super valuable. You can get a sense of how they solve problems, their creative style, and their overall approach. And if you really want to put their skills to the test, you can even give them a little coding challenge or a sample project. It's a great way to see how they think and how well they can explain their process.
It's like a little mini audition. And it's not just about their technical skills, is it? You also want someone who can communicate well and who's a team player. Because in the end, you're all working together to build something.
Absolutely. Being super talented technically is great, but it doesn't mean much if they can't communicate clearly or work well with others. That's a recipe for disaster.
So you've interviewed a bunch of candidates, you've found the one, you're ready to make it official. What's next? How do you get your new video ninjas settled in and feeling like part of the team?
Onboarding is crucial. You got to make sure they have everything they need to get started right away. Access to the code base, all the important documentation, a proper development environment, the whole 9 yards. It's like you're handing them the keys to the kingdom.
But it's more than just giving them the tech stuff, isn't it? It's about making them feel welcome and like they belong. How do you create that kind of environment?
Mentorship is key. Pair them up with someone experienced who can answer their questions and show them the ropes. Encourage them to be part of team meetings and brainstorming sessions. And most importantly, give them chances to learn and grow.
So it's about making them feel supported, challenged, and valued.
Exactly. When developers feel valued and like they're a part of something, they're way more likely to be engaged and productive.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. What's the one piece of advice you'd give to someone who's just starting their search for a Vine developer?
Be super clear about what you want to create. What kind of video experience are you going for? What are your must-have features? What's your budget? Once you have a really clear vision, the search gets a lot easier.
And don't be afraid to ask for help. There are some awesome resources out there like theperfectdeveloper.com that can make this whole process a lot smoother. They've got a whole network of developers who've already been vetted, and their 5 questions feature is an amazing way to figure out exactly what you need.
It's like having your own personal matchmaker for developers.
So we've talked about what Vine developers do, how much they make, how to find them, and even how to keep them happy once you've hired them. And remember, if you're feeling a little lost, theperfectdeveloper.com is an incredible resource to help you navigate this whole process. Seriously, check them out.
They can be lifesavers, especially if you're new to hiring people in tech.
All right, folks, that's a wrap on part 1 of our deep dive into the world of Vine developers. Make sure you stay tuned for part 2, where we'll be tackling some of the potential challenges you might face during your search. See you soon. And we're back. Hiring can definitely be a bit of a maze, especially when you're looking for someone with such specific skills. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about some of the potential challenges you might face when hunting for that perfect Vine developer. You know those moments that make you want to pull your hair out. What are some of the common pitfalls our listeners should watch out for?
You're absolutely right. It's not always smooth sailing. One of the biggest hurdles you might face is simply finding someone with the right mix of skills and experience. Vine development is kind of a niche within a niche, and it can be tough to find someone who checks all the boxes, especially if you have a very specific project in mind.
Especially since the tech world changes so fast. What's hot today might be totally outdated tomorrow. How do you make sure you're not hiring someone whose skills are about to go extinct?
Thorough vetting is key. Don't just skim resumes and take their word for it when they say they're an expert. Dig deeper. Look at their portfolio. Check their GitHub contributions. Ask for code samples. You want proof that they're not just familiar with the latest stuff, but that they're actually learning and keeping up with the changes.
It's like checking their tech expiration date. You want someone who's future-proof. What about the dreaded communication breakdown? We talked about this a little bit earlier with overseas hiring, but it can happen even with local developers. Any tips on bridging the gap between tech jargon and plain English?
Clear communication is so important, and it goes both ways. As the person doing the hiring, you need to be really clear about what you need for the project, what your vision is, and what you expect from them. Don't assume they understand your jargon or that they can read your mind. And on the other side, encourage them to ask questions, to explain things in a way you understand, and to tell you about any potential problems early on.
Basically, treat it like any relationship. Honesty, open communication, and a willingness to understand each other's point of view are key. What about those tricky salary negotiations? Any advice on finding that sweet spot between getting a good deal and attracting top talent?
Do your research. Know what the going rate is for Vine developers with similar experience and skills in your area. Be upfront about your budget, but be willing to be flexible too. If you find someone who really gets your vision and has the skills to make it happen, don't be afraid to stretch a little. Remember, you're not just paying for skills, you're investing in someone who can help you build something awesome.
It's all about value, right? You want to make sure both sides feel good about the deal. Okay, last but not least, any tips on keeping your Vine developer happy and engaged once they're on board?
Creating a positive work environment is super important for keeping people around. Give them challenging projects that let them use their skills and be creative. Encourage collaboration and knowledge sharing within the team. Offer opportunities for professional development, whether that's going to conferences or taking online courses. And most importantly, recognize and reward their hard work. A little appreciation goes a long way.
That's fantastic advice. And I'd add one more thing. Don't be afraid to let your Vine developer experiment and take risks. Innovation often comes from pushing boundaries and trying new things.
I totally agree. Foster a culture of experimentation and celebrate both the successes and the failures. It's all part of learning.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what's the key takeaway for our listener who's ready to start this hiring journey?
Finding and hiring a Vine developer can be tough, but it's incredibly rewarding. Do your research, be clear about your vision. Don't be afraid to ask for help, and most importantly, trust your gut.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And remember, if you're feeling overwhelmed, theperfectdeveloper.com is an amazing resource to help you through this whole thing. They can connect you with top talent, help you narrow down your search, and even offer advice on stuff like negotiating salaries and onboarding. Seriously, check them out.
They're lifesavers, especially if you're new to hiring in the tech world.
All right, folks, that's a wrap on part 2 of our deep dive into the world of Vine developers. We'll be back soon with part 3, where we'll dive into how to measure the success of your new hire. So we're talking about measuring success and really making sure you've got the right person for the job. It's about looking beyond just as like vanity metrics, the views and shares. What are some deeper insights you can get from the data to really know if your Vine developer is killing it?
You got to look at the user experience metrics, things like app crashes, video loading times, and user retention. Those are all signs of how well your app's actually doing and how happy your users are. If you're seeing a lot of crashes or videos taking forever to load, that's a big red flag that something needs fixing.
So it's not just about how many people are watching, but how smooth and enjoyable the whole experience is. It's about making something that people get hooked on and want to keep coming back to.
Exactly. And that's where having a skilled Vine developer makes all the difference. They get how to optimize the technical side of things to make the user experience amazing.
This has been so helpful. We've gone from like the history of the Vine developer to all the ups and downs of hiring one. Before we wrap up, any last words of wisdom for our listener who's now got all this info and is ready to start their search?
Finding the right developer is like investing in your dream. Take your time, do your research, and don't settle. And if you really want to make things easier, theperfectdeveloper.com is a total game changer. Their 5 questions feature can help you zero in on exactly what you need. And their network of pre-vetted developers takes out a lot of the stress.
It's like having your own personal headhunter. And on that note, it's time to wrap up this deep dive into the wild world of Vine developers. Hopefully you're feeling ready to take that next step and start your search.
Good luck finding your perfect match. Remember, the right developer is out there waiting to help you make your video vision a reality.
And don't forget, head over to theperfectdeveloper.com and try out those 5 questions. It's a serious game changer. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, happy hiring.